Toledo, located in central Spain and protected on three sides by the Tahoe River, was for several centuries the heart of Spanish culture and government. Roman rule began in 192 BC and continued until the Visigoths made Toledo its capital in 570 AD. The Visigoths, who were Christian, established much of the legal and taxation system that continues in Spain until this day. The Moors captured Toledo in 711 AD, and the first 200 years of their rule was marked by Christian persecution and rebellion. In 932 AD, a relatively peaceful period of coexistence was established until King Alfonso VI captured Toledo in 1085 AD. For the next 400 years, Toledo thrived with Christians, Jews, and Muslims living in peace. In 1492, when Ferdinand and Isabella captured Granada, they forced all Jews and Muslims to convert or leave Spain. Toledo began its decline when Philip II chose to move the capital to Madrid. This plaza, close to our hotel, was home to the Tourist Bureau and Vicky's friend, Don Quixote. Plaza Socadova is at the heart of modern-day Toledo. We had our first churros and chocolate here. This building houses the regional government offices at Toledo. It flies the flag of the European Union, Spain, and the area of La Mancha in which Toledo resides. Toledo's cathedral was built from 1226 to 1495 and is a mix of Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque, and Neoclassical styles. Built on the location of a mosque that was in turn built over an original Visigothic church, this is one of the most unique cathedrals we have seen. These doors were made in 1548, part of the lion door. The transparente is what makes this cathedral so unique. A hole was cut into the ceiling in the 1700s to allow sunlight to brighten the mass. Beneath this opening is a Baroque masterpiece carved from Italian marble. The ceiling adjacent to the transparente is covered with a beautiful painting. Spanish architecture included ornate carved wood ceilings that were plated with gold. The sacristy contains masterpieces by El Greco, Goya, Titian, Velasquez, Caravaggio, and Bellini. In the 16th century, Charles V moved the tombs of 8 kings into this chapel of the new kings. These kings reigned before Ferdinand and Isabella. The cloister area of the cathedral was added in the 1400s. Chapel of St. Blaise contains the tomb of a Toledo bishop and a fresco by a student of Giotto from Italy. The treasury contains the 10-foot-tall, 430-pound monstrance. Designed to hold the communion wafer as it is paraded through the streets during the festival of Corpus Christi, it is made of over 5,000 pieces held together by 12,500 screws. It contains diamonds, emeralds, rubies, 400 pounds of gold-plated silver, and 35 pounds of pure gold. The choir area is where church leaders assembled. The lower seats are decorated with scenes showing individual towns being conquered by Christians during the Reconquista. The upper seats have carvings of Old Testament figures. Above the archbishop's seat is an alabaster relief depicting a 7th century Visigothic miracle. The back of the choir area is marked by 3 alcoves separated by columns that come from the original mosque that stood on this ground. The high altar, made of real gold on wood, is one of the best examples of Gothic art in Europe. Scenes on the altar portray the life of Christ, whose 9-foot image is mounted at the top. This Fra Angelico crucifix depicts Jesus alive on the front and dead on the back. It was a gift to Franco from Mussolini. Santa Tome is a simple chapel that contains El Greco's most famous painting, The Burial of the Count of Argas. The Count is better known as El Cid. He is buried below the painting. St. John of the Monarchs is a Franciscan monastery that was built to celebrate the 1476 Battle of Toro that made Isabella the Queen of Castile. The facade of the monastery contains 500-year-old chains that were used by the Moors to shackle Christians. Plans to entomb Ferdinand and Isabella here were abandoned when Granada fell in 1492. The Bisagra Gate dates to Moorish times, but the current one was constructed in 1559. It contains the coat of arms of Spanish King Carlos I, who was also the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Until recently, it was the only vehicular gate into the Old City. The oldest section of walls surrounding Toledo date from the 10th century. There is a beautiful park area just outside the Bisagra Gate. The Soul Gate is another pedestrian entrance into the Old City. The Tahoe River surrounds Toledo on all sides except the north. In the distance you can see the highway from Madrid. We enjoyed panoramic views of Toledo from the rooftop of our hotel. You could see the Alcazar, which we did not tour, the cathedral, and the double spires for the town hall where the tourist information was located. We have left Toledo and we're driving through the area of La Mancha, and this is some olive groves on the far hills over there. I'll zoom in. Been driving through quite a bit of farmland. This is Castle Molinares out of the town of Consagra. It's noted for the windmills and La Mancha area, Cervantes. These are the windmills of Don Quixote fame. Hotel Gonzales was in the old part of Cordoba, near the Mesquita. The roads were very narrow and crowded with tourists and made it extremely difficult to locate the hotel. We spent the first afternoon exploring the Jewish quarter. This charming courtyard was the first craft market in Spain. A dozen studios cluster around this patio where artists work in leather, glass, textiles, mosaics, and pottery. This small family synagogue was built by Mudahar craftsmen in 1315 and was used until the Jews were expelled from Spain in 1492. It is one of only 3 medieval synagogues remaining in Spain. During Moorish rule, Jews paid substantial taxes that went into the construction of the Mesquita. Jewish quarter was marked by narrow lanes and small courtyards, many of which contained restaurants such as this one. On this street we found a store containing the most beautiful pottery. That evening we took a walk down to the Guadalquivir River. Passing by one of the walls of the Mosquito, we came to this 18th century column dedicated to Saint Raphael, who was supposed to protect this region from calamities. We then came to this Renaissance archway, which was dedicated to Philip II, but was never finished since he arrived in Cordoba before it was completed. Crossing the Roman bridge, we had a great nighttime view of the Mosquito. We finished the evening by eating at this bodega near the Mosquito. The Mosquito measures 400 by 600 feet. As you enter the mosque, you come to this courtyard area known as the patio of orange trees. This courtyard is where Muslims would perform their ritual washing before entering the mosque to pray. The courtyard walls display many of the mosque's carved ceiling panels and beams, which date from the 10th century. The bell tower was built on the remains of a minaret in the 1600s. For 4 centuries, a singing cleric would ride a donkey up the square minaret 5 times a day to call Muslims to pray toward Mecca. Entering the former mosque, you are overwhelmed by an expanse of more than 800 red and blue columns, topped with double arches. A round Romanesque arch above a horseshoe-shaped Visigothic arch. These arches are made of marble, granite, and alabaster, recycled from Roman and Visigothic ruins. The mosque was built between 784 and 987 AD, on top of the Visigothic Church of St. Vincent. This Christian church dates from the 6th century, and remnants remain, including this floor mosaic and many carved stone pieces which are on display in one corner of the mosque. The mihrab was the focus of the mosque. Added in 961 AD, the imam would face this room with his back to the crowd and read from the Quran or preach a sermon. The architecture of the mihrab would project his voice out into the mosque so that the crowd could hear. In front of the mihrab is an anteroom that was built for the caliph and his family so that they could attend prayers in a more private setting. In 1236, King Ferdinand III conquered the city and turned the mosque into a church. 16 columns were removed and replaced with Gothic arches to construct this Villa Viviosa chapel. A royal chapel was added in the late 1300s to bury Christian kings. Never open to the public, the room has lavish Arabic artwork created by Mudahar craftsmen. The treasury is filled with display cases of religious artifacts, such as this monstrance. While not as impressive as the one in Toledo, the bottom is Baroque while the top is Gothic in design. Another interesting piece is this crucifix made in 1665 by an unknown artist. The centerpiece of the current Mosquito is the Renaissance cathedral constructed by Charles V beginning in 1523. While the mosque is only 30 feet high, the cathedral towers 130 feet. The contrast between the darker mosque and the lighter cathedral seems to also contrast the two religions. entire area is made of very ornate mahogany wood. It was added in the 1700s. The wood came from the New World. This is the pedestrian bridge over the river. The base of this was built by the Romans in the 1st century. This is the unfinished arch that was built to welcome King Philip II. Views of the Mesquita taken from the Roman bridge. They were gathering oranges from the trees along the sidewalk. We were told the oranges were not good to eat. Walking by the Alcazar on our way to the patio homes, we saw this caballero along the street. We plan on going to the show tonight. Each of these homes has a central patio garden area, and each year there's a contest to see who has done the best job with their patio gardening. These are some of the original walls that surround the old part of Cordova. For lunch, we went back to the patio area where we had spotted a restaurant that was on Rick Steve's list. After an afternoon's rest, we strolled down to the Roman Bridge area for one last view before heading to the horse show. Prior to the horse show, we viewed some antique carriages dating back to the 1300s. After locating our apartment and stocking up on supplies, we took an afternoon stroll through the old port of Grenada. At Plaza del Carbon, we came across this dance marathon. Corral del Carbon was one of 14 Silk Road stops for caravans located in Grenada. It is the only one that survives today. Camel caravans would stop and spend the night here. This one is located only one block from the Silk Market. The courtyard has 14th century Moorish brickwork surrounding a water well. After the Moors were driven from Spain in 1492, this facility was used to store coal, hence the name Corral del Carbon. Originally a Moorish silk market, the Alcateria was filled with over 200 shops containing salt, silver, spices, and silk. Silk was so important in Moorish times that it had 10 gates which were guarded. A fire destroyed the original in 1850, and what you see today was rebuilt for tourism afterwards. As Christian forces pushed the Moors south out of Spain, Granada became the last Moorish stronghold. Plaza de Villarambla was at the center of Moorish Granada. We went back to this plaza several times to eat at some of its restaurants. Granada's cathedral was built on top of the destroyed mosque. Construction lasted from the early 1500s until the late 1700s. Adjacent to the cathedral is the Royal Chapel, where the tombs of Ferdinand and Isabella were moved from the Alhambra in 1521. No pictures were allowed in the chapel area. At Plaza Isabel la Católica, we find this statue depicting Isabella awarding Christopher Columbus his contract to sail to the New World. Isabella was looking for a new route to India, and Columbus was looking for money. Neither got what they wanted. We walked to the Plaza Nueva, where we caught a city bus to the San Nicolas Overlook. This area has the best views of the Alhambra. The Alhambra was the last and greatest Moorish palace in Spain. It is one of the top tourist attractions in Europe, drawing some 8,000 visitors each day. The name means the Red Fortress, which comes from the color of the brick in the Alcazaba fort, which is the oldest part of the Alhambra. The capture of the Alhambra in 1492 by Ferdinand and Isabella marked the end of Moorish presence in Spain. We spent the entire next day touring the Alhambra. We spent most of the morning touring the Generalife Gardens. The gardens are irrigated by water brought in from nearby streams. These cypress trees were planted in 1930 and were not part of the original garden area. This outdoor theater was built in the 1950s to provide a concert venue for Granada. The lower gardens are set out in a traditional Moorish style. The Albazan district is the old Moorish quarter of Granada. The San Nicolas viewpoint in the Albazan district is the best place to get an overall view of the Alhambra. From the garden area, you get a good view of the main portion of the Alhambra. Guests would dismount their horses in this area before entering the private palace of the king. This is called the court of the water channel because of the water that runs down through the middle of it. It was built by Muhammad I. This was the Sultan's court. In the center lower arch, he would have set up his throne or chair, and he would have met with people here in this area. The banisters of this staircase actually carried water from one level of the garden to the other. This pump house brought water from the river to the garden area. We exited the garden area under these oleander arches. Exiting the garden area, we entered the Alhambra proper through this gateway. From the Alhambra, you can view the garden area and the Sultan's palace. Built in the 1200s, this water channel brought water into the Alhambra. Shops of craftsmen are located in the Medina section of the Alhambra. This building houses the administrative offices for the Alhambra. This is called the 7-storied gate and goes down to the gate of the wells. We're coming down a walkway. Down at the end of the walkway is the Palace of Charles V. This is the Palace of Charles V. There are cannons facing out toward the city, and below us is the Justice Gate. While waiting in line to enter the palace, we got a good view of the Albizon district again and the San Nicolas overlook. This courtyard was the original entryway into the palace. This area of the palace served as a reception room and a throne room for the king. The ceiling had immaculately carved wood. The double-headed eagle, which was King Charles V's symbol, was added at a later date. The court of the Golden Room was also used as a reception area. If the king received guests here, he would be standing on an elevated platform between the two doors, so that he always stood taller than his guests. Areas such as the courtyard of the Myrtles was used so that women could go outdoors but not be seen by the public. The ship room gets its name from a Moorish word which means divine blessing and luck. In the Spanish, this word is corrupted to mean ship. The Grand Hall of the Ambassadors served as the throne room. In this room, the Moors surrendered Grenada in 1492, ending the reconquest of Spain by Christians. It was also in this room that Columbus made his final and successful sales pitch to Ferdinand and Isabella to finance his trip to the New World. The ceiling is made of 8,017 wood pieces fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. The courtyard of the Lions contains a fountain ringed by 12 marble lions, which are original to the 14th century. Conquering Christians took the fountain apart to determine how it worked, but were unable to reassemble it in working order. It was finally reinstalled in 2012. The courtyard is framed by 124 columns. The Hall of Abencerrages served as the Sultan's living room. It is based on the 8-sided Muslim star. The name derives from a legend concerning the last Muslim Sultan who ruled in the Alhambra. His father remarried and killed all the sons of his previous wife except Boabdil Abencerrages, who was able to take the throne after him. The Hall of the Two Sisters is named for twin slabs of white marble on the floor flanking the fountain. It is typical of a royal bedroom. The fountain cooled and humidified the room. Washington Irving wrote Tales of the Alhambra while staying here in 1829. He later served as ambassador to Spain. Irving had a great view of Granada from a hallway just outside his room. You exit the palace through the patio of Linda Raja with its maze-like hedge-patterned garden. The Portal Gardens were built upon the ruins of the Portal Palace, which was built around this reflecting pond. It served as living quarters on the cooler north side of the Alhambra. The Alhambra was the site of 7 different palaces built over a span of 150 years. The name Alhambra means the Red Castle. This is the entrance to the Alcazaba, which was the original 13th century Red Fort. It provided safety for the 2,000 inhabitants living within the Alhambra. The Romans probably had a fort in this same location. The Alcazaba has 3 watchtowers. This tower also served as the castle keep. 4 flags fly over the Alhambra and the Alcazaba. The blue flag represents the European Union. The green and white flag belongs to Andalusia. The red and yellow flag is the flag of Spain, and the red and green flag is the flag of Grenada. From the tallest tower in the Alcazaba, you get great views of the palace of Charles V, the city of Grenada, the surrounding countryside, including the Sierra Nevada mountain range. The Holy Roman Emperor Charles V built this Renaissance palace for official functions, but used the Nazare Palace for his royal residence. The palace was designed by a student of Michelangelo. Its shape is a circle within a square. A dome was designed to be placed over the circle, but was never completed, as Charles V's son, Philippe II, built his own palace, the El Escorial, near Madrid.